The night is cold and quiet at the Öresund Bridge, once a symbol of hope connecting Denmark to Sweden. Tonight, October 28, 2025, it feels like a fortress wall. Under harsh security lights, Swedish border guards check every vehicle. A family in a worn-out sedan is turned away. Their papers not in order, their pleas denied. This is now the new normal. Sweden, once the most welcoming nation in Europe, has closed its doors. The message is clear. No one is getting in. This isn't a temporary measure, but a permanent, shocking shift. The guards here are the face of a new Swedish identity, one that has decided generosity is no longer affordable. The flow of refugees has slowed to a trickle. The dream of a Swedish sanctuary has ended here, on this cold bridge. For decades, this border was a gateway to safety and opportunity. Now, it's a barrier. The change has been swift, leaving many in shock. International organizations and diplomats express concern, but inside Sweden, a new consensus has taken hold. The government insists this is necessary to preserve the Swedish way of life and manage social tensions. The story of how Sweden got here is dramatic, a tale of compassion meeting reality, and ideals clashing with hard truths. It's a story of a refugee crisis that pushed the country to its limits and a political upheaval that changed everything. To understand why Sweden is closed, you have to understand the journey that brought it to this breaking point. This story holds lessons for all of Europe. For most of the 20th century, Sweden was more than a country, it was an idea. It stood for neutrality, peace, and above all, humanitarianism. While others built walls, Sweden built bridges for the world's most vulnerable. After World War II, it welcomed Holocaust survivors, then Cold War refugees, Chileans fleeing Pinochet, and later, Iranians, Iraqis, and Bosnians. This tradition of hospitality was a source of national pride. Politicians spoke of a moral obligation to help those in need. The Swedish model meant not just a strong welfare state, but a society built on global solidarity. Sweden accepted more refugees per capita than any other European nation, investing heavily in integration. For millions, Sweden meant safety and a second chance. Its international reputation was built on generosity and advocacy for refugee rights. Sweden was the world's conscience. This legacy makes the current situation all the more stunning. The shift from the world's most welcoming nation to one of its most restrictive is a dramatic reversal. Understanding this history is crucial to grasping the magnitude of the change. It shows just how far the country has traveled in a short time. The year 2015 marked a turning point. A massive wave of refugees, mostly fleeing Syria's civil war, arrived in Europe. Sweden stood by its principles. Prime Minister Löfven declared, "My Europe doesn't build walls." That year, 163,000 people sought asylum in Sweden, a nation of just 10 million. It was the highest per capita influx ever recorded in the OECD. At first, there was optimism. Citizens volunteered, the media celebrated stories of welcome, and the government promised Sweden could handle it. But the scale quickly overwhelmed the system. Reception centers became overcrowded, schools and welfare services stretched to the limit. Municipalities warned they could no longer provide basic services. The system was breaking. In autumn, the government admitted defeat. They could no longer guarantee shelter for new arrivals. Temporary border controls and restrictive measures followed. It was the first crack in the open-door policy. The crisis of 2015 pushed Sweden's generosity to its breaking point. The country would never be the same again. The era of open borders was over. The initial wave of support for refugees faded as integration challenges mounted. Housing shortages forced many into temporary shelters for years. The promise of quick integration vanished. Costs soared. Processing, housing, healthcare, and welfare strained public finances. Unemployment among newcomers remained high due to language barriers and unrecognized qualifications. Dependency on welfare grew. Social tensions rose, especially in schools and clinics overwhelmed by demand. Media reports of crime and unrest in immigrant neighborhoods fueled anxiety. The dream of seamless multiculturalism gave way to daily struggles and friction. The government's narrative of successful integration rang hollow. The strain was no longer just practical, it was becoming a political crisis. As challenges grew, the national consensus on immigration shattered. What was once broad agreement became the most divisive issue in Swedish society. The debate grew polarized, one side clinging to humanitarian values, the other demanding realism. Many felt their concerns were ignored or dismissed. People became afraid to voice opinions, fearing ostracism. The media reflected this split with parallel realities and no common ground. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Support for generous policies plummeted. Most Swedes now believed the country had taken in too many immigrants. There was a growing demand for stricter controls and tougher laws. This shift wasn't just about 2015, it was years of anxiety coming to the surface. Political parties critical of open-door policies moved from the fringes to the mainstream. The political landscape was about to be redrawn. The Sweden Democrats, once a far-right pariah, became the main beneficiary of public discontent. Their message, that large-scale immigration threatened Sweden's culture and welfare state, began to resonate. In 2018, they won nearly 18% of the vote, becoming the third largest party. The traditional political blocs fractured. Other parties still refused to govern with them, but the firewall was cracking. The Sweden Democrats set the terms of the immigration debate, forcing others to toughen their stance. After the 2022 election, they became the second largest party and the right-wing bloc secured a majority. A new conservative government formed, with the Sweden Democrats as essential support partners. Their goal of radically transforming immigration policy was within reach. The government, propped up by the Sweden Democrats, began dismantling the old system. The Tito Agreement promised a paradigm shift: restriction, not integration. Sweden now aimed for the strictest immigration laws in the EU. The once untouchable party was now driving the most significant policy change in modern Swedish history. The new government wasted no time. Laws were introduced to make Sweden the least attractive country in Europe for asylum seekers. Permanent residency was replaced by temporary 3-year permits, subject to review and revocation. Family reunification was severely restricted, with tough financial and housing requirements. The focus shifted from asylum to high-skilled labor migration. The path to citizenship became longer and harder, with stricter requirements. Swedish citizenship was now a privilege, not a right. These measures transformed Sweden into a fortress. The legal framework is designed to deter, reject, and expel. Outsourcing asylum processing to third countries is even being considered. The humanitarian superpower is gone, replaced by a nation focused on control and restriction. Nowhere are the consequences of Sweden's immigration policies more visible than in Malmö. As the main entry point from continental Europe, Malmö has long welcomed immigrants. Over a third of its population was born abroad. Once a symbol of multicultural success, Malmö now faces deep social and economic problems. Segregation is stark. Neighborhoods like Rosengård struggle with unemployment, poverty, and crime. Gang violence and shootings have plagued these areas, creating fear and tarnishing the city's reputation. The 2015 crisis made things worse, overwhelming schools, social services, and police. Malmö became a symbol in the national debate, proof for critics that open-door policies had failed. Today, Malmö is a city of contrasts, cultural dynamism and resilience, but also deep challenges. Its struggles played a crucial role in shaping the national debate and fueling the political shift. The story of Malmö is the story of Sweden. Good intentions meeting complex realities. Sweden's dramatic U-turn on immigration is more than a domestic change. It has profound implications for Europe. For decades, Sweden was the continent's progressive vanguard. Its abrupt reversal signals that the political winds have shifted. If even Sweden has concluded open borders are unsustainable, what does that mean for the rest of Europe? Countries like Germany and France are watching closely. Sweden's new model could legitimize a harder line across the EU. The principles of solidarity and shared responsibility are being tested. A Sweden-first approach could lead to a more fragmented Europe. The country that was once a symbol of hope is now a symbol of retreat. Sweden's journey is a cautionary tale about the limits of idealism and the power of political change.